In terms of my perception of an architect in general, I had already going into this an understanding of what an architect does, the value of an architect through some background in residential construction. So I knew that the architect was kind of step one and the jumping off point of everything else. And I knew how important an architect was in terms of our vision coming to life. What did I envision of what something in the water would look like? I had no idea it was going to look like this. I'm thrilled with what it looks like. When we first sat down with Green Propeller, we basically had a concept, and the concept was twofold. One was to be different than any other brewery and not do cement floors and reclaimed wood bar and that kind of masculine aesthetic that you expect from a brewery was number one. But number two was people come to a brewery to be in a brewery. People come for the sights, the sounds, the smells, the experience of all this stainless steel. If we don't have that, then we're just a bar or a restaurant. And so my main brief to Marina and Green Propeller and Jessica at Studio Glas was the space is the brewery, the cafe is the brewery is the cafe. It needs to be one holistic space as opposed to the front of house being separate from the back of house for the customer. Approaching the design for something in the water was very important. It had to be different and unique, and most breweries have a very common look, a masculine look, a look of reclaimed wood and cement floors. And when we sat down with Jessica and explained what we were looking for is frankly the opposite of that. How can we have brighter colors? How could we have kind of more of a more refined touch? We wanted more of a cafe in Barcelona instead of a beer hall in Munich. And Jessica really embraced that and loved the idea of being different. And you can see it with the pink tiles behind our bar. You can see it with the beautiful quartz countertop. Jessica and Studio Glas helped select our tap tower with the beautiful bronze. All of these beautiful touches, these elevated, more sophisticated design touches came from Studio Glas and the renderings that they provided. There's a lot that I wish I knew before we started this process, but the number one thing I wish I knew was how complicated the actual construction aspect of the project was. My assumption is we get these fantastic drawings from Green Propeller, we have these renderings to work off of, and I hand them to a general contractor, and I come back 5 months later, and it's done. And it does not happen that way. And the road to getting to where we are right now was so bumpy, so unexpected, turns that I can't even begin to describe. And I wish I knew that because I would have involved the architect more, I would have involved the engineers more, and I wouldn't have tried to do it all myself. This cooler was one of the most important aspects of the design. It takes up a lot of space. This production area, this is the heart and soul of the business, and we lose about a third of it from this cooler. It also took a very long time to get. It was one of the longest lead times, and integrating this and where we were going to put this in the brewery in terms of how we receive goods, how we take beer out to sell to customers was very important, and this was all spec'd out by Green Propeller. This is when we finish our beer, once it goes through the brewery, it all comes into the cooler. When you're small batch, artisanal types of beers that we do, it's very important to refrigerate them. People like Molson just put preservatives in it and it can sit out in the sun for 6 months, but our beer isn't like that at all. Throughout the process, there was a lot of complicated conversations, mainly in the world of engineers, mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. And the big value I got from working with Green Propeller was that Marina and her team were able to take those complicated concepts and bring them down a level so someone like me could understand them and make an educated decision about what was put in front of me. The most important thing I learned about the construction process is if it's not on the drawings, it doesn't exist. I had a basic understanding of construction before we began. My background was mostly in residential. I was warned that commercial was quite different, but it did help that I was familiar with architectural drawings. I knew the function of certain trades, and when we started talking about millwork and lighting, I had a baseline understanding of that, and I think I was able to contribute some thoughts in some constructive ways. The value of an architect is a really interesting question because architects are expensive. Relative to other trades that I used, they're not that expensive, but as a line item, let's be honest, they carry a cost. I got all the value from Green Propeller and some. And what sold me on Green Propeller, and I was able to interview some fantastic architectural firms, was Marina. Marina made it very clear for me at the beginning of this project that she would be my quarterback. She said, Steve, you're the head coach and you're in charge, but I'm your quarterback. I'm gonna be with you every step of the way. And when times get tough, you're gonna have me there as your number one. And that happened so many times. And every time Marina was there to pick up the phone, to answer an email, to give me guidance. And she came through in spades with everything she promised me. Are there any design decisions that I would change now that we're open? Firstly, I wish I listened to everything that Jessica said. She told me there's gonna be a couple times she's gonna put her foot down and insist on some things, and one of them was the quartz countertop behind the bar. It was astronomically expensive, but it is the centerpiece of the whole space, and I'm so thrilled that she pushed me on it. The only thing I would change is there were some small details. Example is tiling the bottom part of the walls in the bathroom. I didn't do it because I wanted to save some money, and in retrospect, it would have been worth the $1,500 to do because it would have made that much of a difference. But you don't know that until it's all done. Overall, I'm thrilled with everything that Jessica pushed me to do because she was making all the right decisions for my benefit. In terms of the design decisions that Studio Glas made, she was very respectful of the fact that we are a new business and a startup business. All of our Adirondack chairs, which were essential to the whole aesthetic, are from Costco. And I think that was an example of Jessica understanding that we have a budget, but we also have expectations, and how can you balance those? The commercial construction process is complicated, and as a client, you know the beginning and you know where you want to get to. But in terms of the pathway to get there, you simply don't know. And the value of the architect was laying out not only the sequence at the beginning of what was going to happen, but once we checked one box, what was the next box that needed to be checked to get to the next step. And kind of laying out that roadmap so that I knew what was coming and what to expect in the coming days, the coming weeks, and the coming months. Working with an environmentally focused architecture firm was important to us because it's one of the elements of our business that we focus on. Beer uses a lot of water. That's inherent to what we do, and our impact on the environment is very significant. We've partnered with a not-for-profit organization that helps support clean water across Canada, and we felt that because that's so important to us as a business, having an architecture firm that's mindful of the environment and the land that we live on was an important decision in evaluating working with Green Propeller. If someone believes that they can complete any sort of commercial project without an architect, they're fooling themselves. You might have a vision in your mind of what you want, but how do you get that and put it on a piece of paper, and a piece of paper that then you could give to other people to give you estimates and timelines and permits and all the things involved. And ultimately, it begins with the architect, and everything that happens at the end is because of what the architect did. So without question, the most important aspect of any commercial construction job. Without question, the most challenging aspect of this project was the mechanical engineering, full stop. And that is a world that I do not know, I have no background in. And the architect was my confidant in managing all of the complexities of mechanical engineering. There's the complexities of the plumbing within the cafe, there's the complexities of the brewery, and understanding those and making educated decisions was incredibly challenging. We are in a mixed-use building, and navigating the infrastructure of the building led to numerous complications from a mechanical engineering standpoint, and having the architect help me understand the implications of those. And sometimes when I felt I was being boxed into a corner about a decision, helping me understand what's outside that box and making a good decision. It was hard to manage the risk of how much this project could cost. I had a budget, and that was obviously the springboard. I worked with Marina specifically on putting together a framework of a budget based on what I was asking for and what she believed that would cost. And we kind of worked from there. The change orders and the drastic incremental costs came more from an infrastructure standpoint in terms of the building that we're in, what's underneath the slab, and kind of the things that we just didn't know. I will say, in terms of what we wanted to build, in terms of the bar and the restaurant, when Marina put those budgets together, we came very close to what that budget was. The budget for the architect is an interesting question. I interviewed multiple architects in Toronto and outside of Toronto. My background is in the creative industry, so I have worked with different art directors and designers, and part of it is they can charge different amounts for the same thing, depending on who the architect is, what type of company it is. I will say that Green Propeller was not cheap. They were not the most expensive, they were not the cheapest. They were certainly in the world of the other quotes that I got. And because this project, now at completion or near completion, is so similar to what those initial drawings and renderings are, I feel that I got all the value I could possibly want from working with Marina and Green Propeller. There were multiple characteristics I was looking for in an architect, but the most important is do we have a shared sensibility in the way that we work? And we have values here at Something in the Water being respect, merit, and accountability. And I felt that Green Propeller respected me and my team and our beliefs. I had no question in terms of the work ethic that Green Propeller was going to put into the project. And I could tell by speaking to Marina and the way she works with other clients and the projects that she's been on, that the accountability would be there. That if she didn't have an answer or if things didn't go the way she said that they would go, that she would be big enough to admit that. And she delivered on all three of those values. Having an architect-led design team was an amazing aspect of this project because it wasn't the designer over here and the architect over here And I wasn't stuck in the middle trying to bring them together. It was all under one roof. And I knew when Jessica was presenting everything from a design perspective, Marina had already looked at it, and vice versa. And it was very helpful for me that those weren't two distinct companies and two distinct disciplines that was on me to manage. Having it all under one roof was incredibly helpful and valuable. Now that this is all put together, the excitement that we have for opening our doors is absolutely tremendous. Our build out was 6 months long, and that's 6 months of watching this turn from a concrete slab into what's around us, and having this brewery installed and have all the signage up. I mean, it took everything we had in terms of our stress, our finances, our families putting up with everything. And now that we're so close, I wish we opened yesterday, because we put in a lot of hard work and there were some really tough days to get here. But now that we see it, I know it's all going to be worth it. We believe we're very different from other breweries besides the design aesthetic and the experience that you're going to get in here in terms of that kind of elevated cafe experience that you see and being in the brewery and having the brewery part of it. From a product standpoint, we make curious beers, and that's what makes us different. We're trying to make some very different beers. We call them curious beers, where we're going to take a style or a type of beer that you might know and try and make them different. And one of the best examples of that is our sweet brunch stout. So we took a stout, as you would know it today, like a nice dark malty beer, and we put in all the ingredients of a pancake breakfast. So we start with 5 types of malt. We add some oats to give it a little bit of body. We steep it in local coffee, and then we finish it with maple syrup. And it's our way of making a stout that you might find at the LCBO curious by putting in all the ingredients of a pancake breakfast.